let's start with the first issue, shall we? I was wrong. I thought this was a two-parter. Turns out this is actually a three-parter. My bad. I'm sure more than a few people were screaming at me. Hey, it's a three-parter for Gensley! Also, I don't know if his name is said later, or hell was said before, or because, that's a possibility too. It has been a while since I've watched the season 1 stuff. Keep in mind, this project's, again, I just want to reiterate for the record, this project started all the way back in 2022, so so yeah, it's been a few years since I've watched the season 1 stuff. This is, of course, the fight with Gensley, aka Konosuke Oshita. By the way, I had to look it up because in the sub version of this episode, Gensley's Japanese name is not uttered once. Whereas in the dub, they say Gensley 4 or 5 damn times. Not because they're trying to wear it out, but because Atem is responding to something Gensley says. Hell, nobody even says which of the big 5 is actually masquerading as Deepsea Warrior. They just say it's Deepsea Warrior that's attacking Yugi. Which... Alright, I'm going to say something that's going to... and I forgot to jot down the preference points, so I will do that while I keep talking here. The funny thing about this episode is that the sub did actually get a point, right? But the dub also got 2 points this week, which, for the record, that is still, 37 versus 22, for the record. But the funny thing is that I have a sneaking suspicion, based upon the fact that they never name Gensley, so he's not important. They're not the big. In other words, the big 5 are not, as of this point, are still not important enough to individually name. I complained about that last week. But also some of the stuff to do with Noah. Now, obviously, for the purposes of this thing, I'm going to talk about Gensley a little bit first, and why I can't stand. I honestly cannot stand him in the Japanese version. Like, he honestly pisses me off because all he does is just regurgitate proverbs throughout the entire episode, and it's just so boring. Listening to him, listening/reading his dialogue, because all he's doing is just quoting philosophers and warlords the entire time. That's not characterization. Oshita is not characterized. Do not mistake the fucking quotes for characterization. They are not fucking characterization. Just like being played by a brilliant actor is not characterization. In and of itself. Now, if the casting director is doing that for a purpose, like, for example, playing into a voice actor's tropes, for example, like, say, casting Matt Mercer as a wandering musician that's also a complete goofball, an artist with quirks, well, that's an artistic decision of the casting. Casting one of the most popular actors of all time to be your villain in your stupid ass Star Trek movie is not. Just to name two examples right off the top of my head. Which is weird to compare Olivier Olivier from Trails and Soren of all characters from Star Trek. Heck, but you understand my distinction, right? Hell, actually, what's funny is this: Star Trek actually did get that right in the movies. Anybody remember Star Trek 6? Christopher Plummer playing General Chang? Hang? Hang? Yes. Yes. His quoting of Shakespeare was actually kind of an idea because, Shakespeare, theatrical plays, is Chang a theatrical villain? I mean, it's a stupidly simple connection, but it still works. There's a reason why it's okay for Chang's final words to literally be to be or not to be.
To be or not to be.
There's a reason why that works. Oshita, on the other hand, is just a boring-ass fucking villain that I kind of want off my goddamn screen. Now, granted, Gansley isn't much better, but at the very least, he's still fitting with the business motif. He's constantly spouting off in the dub all about, business decisions, building a workforce, and being willing to sacrifice employees in order to achieve success, blah, 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 right? I actually have some notes about that. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to go ahead and count for you how many notes about Gansley I have versus how many notes about Oshita I have, okay? So let's see. 10 or 11, depending on how you score it, right? Now, that's admittedly because of specific things that are more universal. But again, so you shave off like 3 or 4 of those, and it's like, yeah. But still, it's like, you eliminate like 4 of those from each, and it's like, yeah, no, I didn't, right? I actually did jot specific character notes. Gansley doesn't have many. And hell, that one I counted could just be the same. So yeah, no, universal notes, no. I didn't write down many notes about this character in either version. But he's more memorable to me in the dub, because at least in the dub, there's something to him. Instead of in the Japanese version, where there is nothing. There is, in my opinion, absolutely fuck all for Oshita. We don't even get his fucking name in this 3-parter in the sub. How's that for fucked in the head? At least Trails will give you the fucking name as a nameplate. Hey, this, nope. This literally might as well be another fucking Garimo situation. You know? Or I guess a Seeker? No, Loomis and Umbra would be the inverse. Because you've got Garimo and Seeker who had names in the frickin' Japanese version, but not in the dub. And then you've got frickin' Loomis and Umbra who didn't have names except for Mask of Light and Mask of Darkness. And so the dub gave them names to actually call them something other than Mask of Light, Mask of Darkness. Apparently they were paying, 4Kids was paying their voice actors by the syllable back in those days. Because, I mean, Loomis and Umbra is 2 syllables each, as opposed to Mask of Light and Mask of Darkness, which is 3 and 4 syllables, respectively. I don't know. I'm just making shit up at this point. Right. Then again, it also feels like the writers are making shit up as they go in this episode, so I suppose it fits. I guess I just jumped right into talking about Gansley. Yeah, Gansley, Duel, Kaiba brothers, others. That's how I'm structuring this for the record. Trying to get a nice little, kind of trying to make a flow, because there are several episodes where it's like, I know what I want to talk about. I know what I want to talk about. I know what I want to, what I want to focus in on, right? Although, if I can segue a little bit, that is one problem I have with this three-parter, and that is, this is another example of some bleed off from season 2. What am I talking about? This episode didn't need to be 3 parts long. Like, this three-parter, this Duel didn't need to be 3 episodes long. You could have easily have had an exploring cyberspace episode, have that be a standalone right as part 1, and then have, in the 3rd episode, have the actual dueling start. I know they kind of didn't want to make the audience wait 3 goddamn weeks before the duels to resume, but, I mean, you technically had one with the Deckmaster demo last week, so shrug. Or hell, make some virtual minions that duel, and then just have some, like, proxy duels or something. I don't know. Just jump right into the fucking boss fights. Wait, what is this, Dark Souls? We're suddenly in a FromSoft game. I'll talk about Noah when we talk about the Kaiba brothers for now. There's one last thing before I can continue with Gansley. I should also note Wild Drive is still the is still the opening, and I looked it up. Apparently, Wild Drive is going to continue to be the opening until part 4 of Clash in the Coliseum. Yeah, so, just in case I need to make my point here, that's episode 132. That is episode 132, when we will finally be done with Wild Drive as the opening, and they'll switch over to Warriors. My God. Which means, by the way, that we go through this entire arc ignoring all of the characters that Wild Drive shows off. Mostly, there's the cameo in Courtroom Chaos, but let's not get into that. I'm not going to bitch about that until we get there, so that's a couple of weeks from now. But, yeah, no, what the fuck, Like, I know I know the episode opens with them getting, thrown into the virtual world, which they don't ever figure out, which is just whatever at this point. But let's get back to Gansley finally. So Gansley shows up. I don't actually have that much to say about Gansley. He is a corporate goon in the dub, and that works a lot better than, and I read a lot of philosophy. A lot of philosophy and history textbooks. Can you tell from how many times I quote random philosophers? God, it's practically every fucking line with him, with Oshida. And it just pisses me off. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Shut up already. Gansley, at the very least, it feels like that's more of a, It feels like Dub Atem is saying what Sub Atem should be saying, namely, shut the fuck up already. You know? Because at least, I mean, at least there's some puns in the English version that Atem throws at Gansley. I actually wrote down a couple of them. Because in part one, he actually, I think there's two that he said. I know there's two. There's at least two business-related puns. Puns. And how much of this is an actual pun, I'll leave up to your interpretation. But like Gansley is like, yes, you are a small fry. I will crush you. I know more about business than you. Right? And Atem literally is looking at him like you're treating this like a business transaction. Okay. Hey, yeah, Duel Monsters is more about, corporate mumbo jumbo and, and buyouts and all that shit. It's so do me a favor and save the corporate speeches for the boardroom. I'm here to play Duel Monsters, not corporate bullshit. Which, credit where it's due. At least at least Atem's priorities are straight in the dub. So then there's the duel. His deckmaster is, of course, Deepsea Warrior. So I like the virtual selecting the things. The sub does not have the don't let any gems slip, which is, I like to think that that's just psychological warfare on Gansley's part, because corporate business transactions are there is a degree of psychological warfare when it comes to corporate business deals. So actually, yeah, that actually tracks with his character much more than the philosophizing that Oshita keeps fucking doing. Seriously, what the fuck is the point of that? I mean, everybody says that, whatever whatever Crump's Japanese name is, the Japanese version of Crump is frickin' creepy. And we'll see that is the next opponent, and he's dueling Anzu of all fucking characters. Oh god, I'm not even gonna touch that. I'm not even gonna touch that. Even when I get to that episode, I'm probably not even gonna touch that. But yeah, he's but then Karibo forces his. Although I do like the one touch I mentioned earlier. There was one touch I liked about when Oshita showed up specifically. So in the Japanese version, when Deepsea Warrior shows up, "Darkness Awakens" is the name of that song, which is kind of fitting. Because a corporate bozo is showing up to wreck Yugi's shit. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I also don't think it matters whether or not Gansley recognizes Atem as a separate Yugi, calling him Yugi Type B and all that shit. It literally doesn't factor into anything in this episode. So it not being there actually kind of almost makes the dub smoother when you think about it. Then there's also Gansley being ruthless as a boss. He's still better than corporate America, which is hilarious. And apparently he started off as a thief. I started with one lemonade stand that I stole. I know the corporate world can be douchey, but goddamn, Gansley. But yeah, so he shows up in Deepsea Warrior as Deepsea Warrior. He has the strategy of drawing options, forcing the opponent to discard, skipping the next opponent's draw phase, and oh yes, having enough monsters to sack in order to put out effectively a magic cylinder type effect, which is never explained in either version, that it only works when the opponent attacks monsters, but apparently it only works when it attacks monsters. And apparently Karibo somehow communicated that to Atem in the dub, and Atem just figured it out in the sub. I mean, I know the Millennium Puzzle is supposed to give him like a redonkulous boost to his luck. Maybe that's it, but frankly, that still pisses me off. That's actually a note I have, one of the last sub notes I have. How the fuck did Atem know about the flaw? Seriously. Also, Karibo getting underestimated again because nobody understands that Karibos are useful. I've been dicked around by Karibos before, okay? They are not that fucking weak. Never mind the fact that Jaden/Judai is going to use a version of Karibo to wreck Monjome Thunder's shit when he uses V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon against him. Think about that. All because he's sweet on little old ladies, apparently. Although the little old lady in question doesn't actually look like she's that old, honestly. I'll look it up when we actually get to GX, is what I'll do. I'll hold off until that. But yeah, so this is also the first appearance of Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, which is funny because the literal I forgot to jot down a note for Swift Gaia, the Fierce Knight. Oops. I mean, I guess I don't have to. I guess I'll mention it. I'll mention it. Just mention it now because yeah, Swift Gaia. Yeah, the final attack, which is awesome. Make no mistake. I did have a complaint about, Janochi not speaking for the group, but that's whatever. Anyways, Wall of Illusion is another monster that he uses, apparently because of that stupid phantom lizard thing. And so, shrug. Also, according to the wiki, it's supposed to be at 2,000 exact is the add up, not 2,000 or less, but whatever. That would be me arguing semantics at this point, so whatever. Rainbow Snake. Nagna? Ugh, whatever. Point is that Rainbow Snake thing that eats Baphomet. It is another. It's funny because there's several monsters in this duel that have never appeared in the TCG or the OCG. How's that for weird? Also, flip effect monsters. This means that a card that came out in Japan and I wrote this down, on September 28th, 2000, would wreck this strategy completely. For the record, in Japan, this episode debuted on March 19th, 2002. Literally just under 18 months later. Yeah. I was going to make a big speech about that, but whatever. It doesn't really matter all that much. I've already mentioned the Reflect X Hold having no good explanation in either version. I'm just going to quickly check over my notes here real quick to see if there's anything else I want to talk about before I close this out. No, I don't care about talking about the subplots. I wrote down notes for the subplots, but then I realized no, there's too many freaking there's too many freaking subplots in this thing, and yeah, I've already mentioned that. Still flabbergasts me that it's like Karibo has that kind of power. Jesus Christ. Apparently, the Karibo brothers debut in universe during the frickin' Doma arc. Whatever. Anywho, the reason I've put my notes away is because I don't need them at this point. Because I know exactly what the last thing I want to talk about is. Seto and Mokuba. They are the reason why the sub got the point, which is funny because they're also the reason why part 2 is my favorite part of these Terrifying Resurrection combo is my favorite of this 3-parter. So they're exploring like the others are, save for Yugi because duh, right? And so they come across a door. Now, Seto is the one in the sub to mistake the door for an actual exit. Okay. Whereas Mokuba, is the one who mistakes it in the dub. It doesn't really matter. It's semantics. But what's funny is that that's actually reversed when it comes to who oversteps with the orphanage. But let's go through the orphanage in a linear order. I love the backstory with the orphanage. I really do. Although I will say the relatives thing of the relatives, overplaying overspending the inheritance, that was a bit much, in my opinion. But I do like the idea. So, Seto and Mokuba were orphaned. They got dropped off at that orphanage. And they basically were miserable. So, and of course they're missing their parents because they're kids at this point. That makes perfect sense. And then Seto sees Gosaburo on TV winning a world chess championship for the 6th year in a row. Okay, he's donating money. Okay, that's our ticket out of here. So Seto appears before Gosaburo when he visits, and he basically delivers an ultimatum to Gosaburo, which is funny because his response is actually more understandable in the dub, in my opinion, than it is in the Japanese version. Because in the Japanese version, he kind of looks at Seto and is like, "I like that look in your eyes, right? The eyes, Chico, they never lie, right?" Which was my note, funny enough, for that. But so, but I also love that it's Gosaburo's pride, his ego specifically, that Seto attacks in the dub. Oh yeah, the papers will love hearing how you're scared of a kid, and he gets pissy about that because it's like, you wouldn't dare. Now here's the funny thing. Something like that could, even in this era, could wreck a person's reputation, right? Because then that starts spreading, and it starts spreading, and it starts spreading, and then, and this was, and sure, this was like the burgeoning days of the internet, but that kind of info could spread, and it could become bad. Especially if some tabloid reporters get their hands on that info. Yeah. It's just a nice little touch. Then Mokuba is an idiot, is kind of an idiot in the sub, but it's completely understandable why he's an idiot in the sub. If I stop the chess match because he's treating it as if they've traveled through time, they haven't. Point to keep in the back of your mind for when we get to the World of Memories arc, by the way. Just saying. Just keep that in the back of your mind for Dawn of the Duel, by the way. But yeah, no, he thinks they time traveled, but of course Seto has to point out to him, very correctly, I might add, no, this is Noah's virtual reality nonsense. Hence, that's not actually, we have not time traveled, Okuba. We are trapped in Noah's virtual prison. Isn't right, and so Seto is effectively trying to be reasonable here, and try to get Mokuba to understand. No, this isn't real. We can't, we cannot, we can't let Noah goad us like this, kind of thing, right? Well, Mokuba, of course, doesn't listen, and then he almost falls down the gorge because he opens the door. And of course, again, because it's not time travel, it's just a virtual reality. That's not a room behind that door. That's a void behind that door, because what they're seeing through that window is not. They're not seeing through a window. They're seeing a screen that's in front of them, essentially. Hey, sense make? So yeah, I do like that in the Japanese version, Kaiba is, or sorry, in the dub specifically, Kaiba is getting, and then in the dub, Kaiba is getting pissy about all this. He oversteps, and then he immediately starts backing off. Like, whoa, wait a minute, Mokuba. Whoa, hang on. No, let's cool our heads here. And it's effectively like trying to back off because he's like, wait, no, calm down, Mokuba. This isn't real. And of course, because Mokuba's tempers are flared at that point, well, that's kind of causes a rift that will be exploited in really stupid ass, cliched and frankly fucking bullshit ways, especially considering that both versions of Noah want to prove their superiority. Oh yeah, that's the other side of this equation too. I'm gonna see on some of the dialogue later, but you know me and switch flips. If it's a switch flip, and suddenly Noah's just perfect, on our side, well, that's not gonna be something I will enjoy. I mean, yeah, there's the final scene of the final couple of scenes of this arc, but yeah, no, it's not enough. Simply put, it is not enough, right? But yeah, no. So, and then of course they're trying to figure. They apparently both Honda, or sorry, not Honda. Have sorry for moving the mic around. I was trying to wipe something up here. Apparently Seto and Otugi don't know what dot hack is. Now, to be fair, dot hack was still relatively new at this point, because again, 2002. So, at most, I would say one of them would be out at this point. Actually, I can look that up. June 20th, 2002. So actually, it was right around the corner. And so actually, it was right around the corner. So never mind. Okay, I guess heck, it wasn't a thing at this point. Huh. actually, what's funny is that in the U.S., yeah, actually that's not as true because we got dot hack infection in February of 2003, and this debuted in November of 2003. Ooh, actually though, now that I'm thinking about it, there is one I should check. Where I should check its release date. Oh, throughout 2002. Oh, in Japan, it doesn't give me a precise air dates. Oh. Well, shit. Oh, April of 2002. So actually, yeah, either way you look at it, Dot Hack was literally after this episode. I just roll my eyes. That's all I can do is just roll my eyes and be wrong. Have none of you heard of Tron? Is Tron an alien concept at this point in time in Japan? I mean, I know Kingdom Hearts is still around the corner at this point, but like, anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Isolated in Cyberspace. B rank episode. It's actually not a bad episode, but I will probably watch this one dubbed rather than subbed because, yeah. Even if part 2 is better in the sub because of, again, the Seto and Mokuba stuff. And that's mostly because of the music, actually. Funny enough. Oh, but I think that's going to do it for me today. Next up, Freeze Play. Fighting Crump. Crap. Blue Wolf, Alex, the Lore Walker signing out. Have a good one. We will stand by.